in the world. I don't know that our, particularly with the nuclear situation, with Iran, with North Korea, merging their technology, merging their capability, I don't know that that's any less of a threat than the Soviet Union back in the 50s. But I'll leave that to those who were around and venture to guess on that. I want to talk about the EPA issue because that's very important, and you cited some specific examples. Look, I'm an environmentalist. You know, when I was in Tallahassee, I passed the toughest animal cruelty laws in America, and when some vendors wanted to go and put snow cone stands and t-shirt stands in our state parks, I used the power of state law to stop them. Because I think there ought to be some places that are preserved and natural, that are just like they were 100 years ago, that I can bring my grandkids to walk around on. So the concern isn't whether or not we care about the environment. We have to. This is our home. Right. The question is, what is the most effective way to protect the environment? Now I look at the EPA, the Office of Management and Budget, nonpartisan entity. They came out and said of the 30 least cost-effective regulations in America, the EPA's got 17 of them. Their own Inspector General that looked at them in the Government Accountability Office said that the EPA was showing favoritism in their programming, they were not managing their grants, and that money that was supposed to be going to the environment was being spent on public relations consultants, and we were giving $27 million to other countries around the world. You are right that we need national standards like the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act. The question is, who is best positioned to enforce them? I think we need to totally reimagine our environmental policies. In 1970, when we started the EPA, we didn't have research universities that had the capability of a University of Florida, a University of Alabama, to be able to go and do environmental testing, innovation work. So my desire is to take the $8 billion that is currently budgeted for the EPA, and let's not spend less, let's downstream those resources to people who are actually doing the enforcement.
Did a great job and got the fee simple title bill passed through the United States House of Representatives. In the United States Senate, there were some who wanted to add an amendment to that bill to say that we could never, ever, under any circumstance, have a pass in Navarre. Now, I'm a supporter of the Navarre pass, and so I made a commitment that we will never pass a bill with my name on it that bans our ability to control our own destiny and open our pass to the Gulf of Mexico. Absolutely. Now, I really want to get to everyone's questions. I'm grateful for you being here and chatting with us. I also want the chance to visit with some of the folks outside, but know this. I do not hold town hall meetings just to chat with folks who agree with me. And so if you're here with criticism, if you'd like me to do something differently, you are welcome. I am glad you are here. And look, you know, I got 7 out of every 10 votes in the last election. And so that means that 3 out of every 10 people who pay my salary, who I serve, I'm their congressman too. And I owe them the responsibility to hear them out, hear their concerns, and to do so responsibly and effectively. And I hope everyone here will share that feeling of inclusiveness for all viewpoints from everyone in our community. You know, some of you may have seen some... I appreciate you being here. Whether folks are paid or unpaid, I'm their congressman. And you know what? They deserve the right to stand in my face, whack their finger in my face, and tell me what they believe. Now that said, and by the way, in a time when fundamental questions about the First Amendment are in the forefront of Americans' minds, I am so great, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, know that in my heart I am so grateful that you would be willing to spend a Thursday night here with me in a nonviolent way, expressing your opinion, and I think that is a great sign of a healthy democracy. But you asked the other part of your question. Your question was, would I capitulate? And the answer is, I am a constitutional conservative. I got 68% of the vote in the last election, and I will govern as a constitutional conservative.
Be healthier, and then we wouldn't have to put out as much money to take care of folks. We also have co-pays. So I am friends with an optometrist, and he said the worst thing we do in Medicaid is we give people free glasses anytime they want them. because people just don't value things that are absolutely free. If people had to pay $1, $2 for that pair of glasses, they could come up with it, but then when they got it, they'd take better care of it. So we could reduce overutilization if we had control over the program. With less money, more efficient. Now your second issue. And put them into the Medicaid program, or would have given them subsidies that we would have had to pay for. So it's a philosophical difference there. Where there's no philosophical difference is when it comes to children, the disabled, seniors, and people who are below the poverty line. But I'll give you the last word, as I promised. Third quarter of 1983. That's a direct quote from the website of the EPA today. Units. They call them OUs. For this parcel behind me, there were 3 OUs that were established. And as we sit here today, 34 years after the problem was identified, not one of the OUs has been completed. Opportunity to see both this brownfield and the success and the ease with which that success was accomplished compared to the EPA Superfund site. I would ask you to reach out to our wonderful state legislators, Senator Broxson, Senator Gaynor, Representatives White, Williamson, Representative Ponder, Representative Ingram, and please ask them to support funding for the state brownfield program. This is very important. It will lead to better environmental outcomes, better employment opportunities, and right now, I think that the brownfield program could become a victim of its own success because people are learning of the great value of the program, because we've made it so easy for local governments to be able to access that value. We're seeing greater participation. And that shouldn't harm the brownfield program. That should make sure that we double down on our commitment, because as I mentioned earlier, when you put $1 into brownfields, it's not really the spending of $1, because we get that money back 6 to 1, because instead of this being a blighted old dock, now it's a vibrant restaurant that creates sales tax revenue and creates jobs and all those opportunities. And so, again, whether you agree. Great. Well, thank you for the question, and thank you for your service in the physical therapy space. Many of you will see my mother is here. Mom, wave. That's my mother, Vicki Gates, and she has done her share of physical therapy, and I recall those days vividly. And in our family, really it goes to our heart, the service that physical therapists and physical therapy assistants provide to people, because you unlock potential to live active and fulfilled lives.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm grateful that God's looking out for you, that you haven't had to use that health insurance policy in the last few years. Obamacare has really crippled the private health insurance market, and that's why I want to repeal Obamacare. We also have to give people more control over their own health care than they do today. The House of Representatives passed legislation that will expand health savings accounts, so that instead of giving all your money to the insurance company, you can stash away more and more of your own cash with pre-tax dollars that then builds up for your use. That then changes the risk dynamic that you have with your overall health care, and it alters the type of policy you can buy. Now today, we don't have a whole lot of choices in the private market. Due to the passage of Obamacare, the private market is collapsing in many parts of the country. And so what we've got to do is we've got to get to a system that is not government-centered and frankly is less employer-centered than it is today. I want a system that is based on the individual, that's based on the patient. Now here's how we get there. You absolutely have to be able to buy insurance across state lines. You know, right now, if you turn on your phone, there's probably a green lizard from Maryland trying to sell you car insurance. Even me, and I'm not all that good a driver to be insuring. I worked with Democrats on animal welfare legislation. I had anti-gun, pro-tax cut Democrats fight with me for tax cuts. Then I had anti-tax cut, pro-gun Democrats work with me on gun legislation. And so I think that to build coalitions, to actually get things done, you've got to be willing to start from the standpoint of, do we all want quality of life to improve? And then what are the things that we can agree on that will advance those causes? In Washington, every incentive is to drive discord and disagreement. Absolutely every incentive. And I don't get the same sense in Washington that there is that common purpose to improve quality of life for everyone. So many people just want to get on television, want to see their name in the newspaper, want to rise up in the leadership. And so I rack my brain every day. I pray for guidance from God about how can we take the values that worked so well in Florida, working together and creating a common, just a sense that we're all in the same rowboat together. And how do you convert that to a system in Washington that is so divisive? First thing is, I think Republicans and Democrats need to spend more time together. That's one of the reasons I'm glad we didn't cancel the congressional baseball game. And that may seem trivial to some, but it's important for us to spend time together so that we view our political adversaries as fellow Americans first. We all should want to do that. And, in Tallahassee, there was one dining room. If you wanted chow, that's where you went. And Republicans and Democrats sat next to each other. And it's pretty hard to stand up and yell that the blood is on someone else's hands when you just split lasagna with them. But when it comes to the NFL players, they have a right to protest, and when they do, we have a right not to watch them, and not to buy tickets, and to cancel our subscriptions to the NFL Network. So, 047, that in Northwest Florida, our sheriffs have prioritized school resource officers. I don't believe that we can ever totally harden any asset if someone is crazy and determined enough, but we can really deter that conduct with school resource officers. Our sheriffs have been great in prioritizing that. And like I was mentioning earlier, the media doesn't always cover common sense things that we do in a bipartisan way. When I was chairman of the Criminal Justice Committee, I worked with a liberal Democrat from urban Broward County. And she and I drafted legislation that ensured that people who walked out of a mental institution couldn't go back home to their arsenal. That they would have due process, but that we would get guns out of the hands of mentally ill people that had been institutionalized. Now, I don't think you take away Second Amendment rights for every single person that chooses to avail themselves to some form of counseling. But if someone is institutionalized, I think maybe we hit the pause button on their access to firearms. And so we've done a few of those things. And, look, I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I believe that in Florida, the fact that we've got over 1 million people that have concealed carry permits is not something that makes us less safe. It makes us more safe. Concealed carry permit holders are actually 8 times less likely to commit a crime than law enforcement officers. So it's an incredibly law-abiding group of people, and I want to protect their right to bear.